This is an episode I have waited for a very long time. Why? Because it's demo, and you make the most amount of progress when you demo. Today we're going to be sorting out the engine bay. We're going to be taking off a lot of this bracketry, we're going to be taking off a lot of the hoses, we're going to be understanding what the S85 is, what the E31 is, and how to connect them. Power steering, AC, cooling. We're going to do all that, at least conceptualize it in this episode. So, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy one of the most anticipated episodes of this build so far. This is just the beginning of what this is going to end up becoming in 2020. Stay tuned, guys. Here we have our very, very messy E31 engine bay with the S85 stuffed inside. We have hoses, we have wiring harnesses, we have reservoirs and brackets and connectors all over the place, and we need to figure out what's what. To figure out, number one, what matters, and number two, I don't have a number two, just number one, what matters. What needs to go, what can stay, and where are things going to get installed. So let's start disassembling everything inside of this engine bay, clean it up a little bit, and then figure out what's what. All right, so I got most of the stuff basically out of here and removed. Remember, I'm going to repaint this entire engine bay after the engine is removed. But I wanted to go through some of the items that still need to be understood and figured out. Now let's talk about that for just a couple minutes. These two lines here, these stainless steel braided lines, coming directly from the engine block, these are oil cooler lines, basically. They go to an oil cooler, then they go to the oil filter, which is also remote on the S85, and then it goes back to the engine. So that's basically a self-contained oil cooling system, which I will need to replicate. But for the purposes of this, this swap, I want to remove them for now. I'll reinstall them or some derivation of that later. Then you got this guy here, this one here, and then there's another hose right down here. Right? These two guys go to the power steering pump, which is this guy. Right? They kind of snake up and around into the power steering pump. And I need to concentrate on the power steering routing because that is a great segue into the brakes. What are we going to do for power steering and brakes? Because on the E31, the power steering and the brakes are integrated because it's a Hydroboost system, meaning that the pump from the power steering pump actually supplies the vacuum assist for the brakes. There is no vacuum assist on the brakes. It's coming from the power steering pump itself. So it's routed through an accumulator here, it's routed through power steering a cooler here, this is the reservoir, it's got a regulator here. It's a relatively complicated system, but it is known to be more reliable and actually provide better braking power than a regular air-assisted vacuum brakes. So it is a complicated system and there's a lot of wire routing, not wire, but tubing routing, but it is something that I'm considering reusing since a lot of the tubing is already here, just needs to be cleaned up, refabbed as needed, but I think that it's possible to adapt the power steering rack to this power steering pump and to the existing Hydraboost system. It's not going to be that difficult. This guy here comes out of the regulator and it comes out to the power steering rack. From the rack, it goes to the pump. From the pump, it goes to this tube here, which is back to the reservoir. So there's still a high pressure and a low pressure system. It's just that the high pressure system ends up going through the regulator and the Hydraboost system in order to create the vacuum for brakes. The good part about this system is that it's slim. There's a lot more plumbing involved, but the good part is that it's slim. You don't need to put a big booster in there. So it actually is It's more complicated, but it's also a better form factor. Now, for shaving the engine bay, this is not good. This is not a good thing for a shaved engine bay. So I want to take the engine out. I want to explore the option of using the air vacuum assist, but I'm probably going to end up going with the existing Hydraboost system. Now, in terms of accelerator pedal, the plan is to use the existing drive-by-wire configuration. On the S85, there's 1, 2. These two guys are your throttle actuators for the actual 5 cylinders on each bank. And these guys actually have a very common problem. The gears end up wearing away. The nylon gears within those throttle body mechanisms wear away, and it causes a mismatch between the commanded motion and the expected motion, the feedback, if you will. So there's a common rebuild on these throttle actuators to replace those nylon gears with a better quality gear. Sometimes they come in metal, but there's tons of aftermarket companies that make them. I did this like years ago before I even put this engine in this car. I had the throttle actuators. I bought them on eBay. And then I bought the gears from, I forget where I got the gears from, but it was a very reputable location that I got them from. But I did rebuild these throttle actuators already, so I don't have a tutorial on how to do that, unfortunately. So we're going to get rid of the existing E30 N54 throttle pedal, and we're going to be going to a drive-by-wire assembly. Now that existing pedal that's currently installed is the old pedal. It's got like a lever actuator arm, and it goes to a spring that goes to a cable inside the engine bay, and it basically pulls your butterfly valve open and closed. Here we're going to be going with an E36 pedal with its own 6-wire harness for each of the 2 potentiometers in there. It's going to have its own connector, and it's going to have the 6 pins, and this is the pedal installation bracket that's going to end up sitting exactly where the pedal is located right now. We're going to do that in another video, but for now we're just exploring what this car is, how to integrate the S85 into this car, and how to get it running. So let's talk DSC for a little bit. This is the existing ABS unit. It's located on the front of the engine, on the front of the car here, mounted on this bracket, which is actually, I guess there's a little bit more bracing after everything's installed, but all the lines basically come from the master cylinder. They go to that, and then it gets distributed to each of the 4 wheels independently. That's why there's 6 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? 2 in and 4 out. So I actually thought about perhaps replacing this entire system with an E90 DSC system. Now the DSC system allows for a lot of advantages over the old ABS. You need to adapt the new E90 sensors to the existing wheel hubs, but it allows for DSC control, ABS. It's got a yaw damper sensor, so it determines what the car's position is in acceleration. It senses the wheel speed and uses that for the computer. There's a lot of good things that the DSC module uses, but adapting it to an older car like this has never been done. An older car like an E30 or an E36 or even an E46, I believe has been done. But I want to try to dictate that in future videos as I start to collect the parts from the E90 and see what it takes to get it adapted into this car. So let's continue to clean up this engine bay and get rid of any extraneous items that we don't immediately need or won't need at all altogether. Let's start with some of the tubers. All right, so removing that power steering reservoir was kind of a fail. Why? Because there's like 6 different lines that are hooking up to it. One's going to the cooler, one's going to the rack, one's going to the regulator, one's going to the booster. Yeah, there's a lot of lines that are coming from this thing. So I'm gonna have to put that one on hold for now and continue with the deconstruction of these oil lines, these guys here. I really want to get these things removed because I want to hook up something to it later myself. but they're just kind of just in the way of the rest of the integration, especially when it comes to like the radiator and all that other stuff. So I really wanted to try to get the oil lines out and then figure out where all that other stuff over there needs to go. All right, this guy here is just too buried behind the AC compressor in order to get to it, so I'm just not even gonna bother right now. I'm just gonna try to tuck it away and put it somewhere right there maybe, but I wanna try to see if I can fit other things in here, and yeah, that'll be it. This is a complicated engine, guys. Damn, lot of tubing, a lot of work. All right, I've been chipping away at this engine bay and cleaning up a little bit here and there, trying to clean it up, understand what's what, and how to integrate one into the other. So I'm learning as I go here about this too, guys. Yeah, I'm no expert in this engine, I'm no expert in this car, but they're both very complicated machines that need to be intertwined and integrated together. So I'm kind of learning here, and you guys have any questions or comments or advice, please let me know. I'd love to learn, I really do. Going through power distribution on this. Now, there are two batteries in the trunk. One battery is for ignition and the starter and the alternator and maintaining that the charge in the car is good. The other is just for the accessories, powering things up. So very expensive to own two batteries nowadays. But, however, the batteries are in the trunk, so that means that the power to the engine bay is routed through and into various different sources. The first source is a red wire here. Don't know what that's for. The second source is another wire here, which I believe is another power. Right, this guy's another power, and I believe that this guy is what goes to the starter. It comes from all the way down there, and it goes to the back of the car, to the battery. So that's another power source that I noticed. There's also a power distribution block here for positive power. And there's a wire here. It comes from the car that goes, let me see if I can get a better view. It goes into that block, kind of like that. So this is another distribution block that has various powers coming out of it. So I need to figure out what is what and what needs to go where. Ground distribution, I know there's a ground distribution here. I don't think that there are any others. I think that this one is for the engine, but I believe that there's another ground point. There's tons of ground points all over the car, right? I mean, there's one for here, there's one over here. So yeah, there's a lot of ground points for distribution. And I need to take the engine out here. I need to take this engine out and just clean it all up, get the whole engine bay out and really go through what's what. But this apparatus here is your heater core pump. You got your 3 heater core tubes right there, and 2 of those go into your pump. I did this on the E36 actually, where there was an auxiliary heat pump that actually keeps it actually pumps coolant through and keeps the interior warm if the engine is not on. So I think there's a heating element in there too. However, it's very similar. So this guy actually goes to the engine, and the other one from the engine goes into this somewhere. Don't know where exactly it goes. I probably just cut the tube off years ago. But this all does need to be sorted. I'm probably going to keep this because it's as stock as possible, and I want to try keeping things looking stock. As far as this goes, all the cowling, I have all the cowling here. I removed the windscreen because it actually had scratches on it, and then as I was trying to polish the windscreen, I broke it, and getting a new one is very expensive. It was like $1,100 just for a new one, which I have upstairs, and I'm just leaving it there until I need it. But I do need to get rid of all this glue, and have a professional reinstall this. So that takes care of most of the front. There's another ground wire here. I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, but just trying to figure out how to make this all work. So as you can see here, there's a lot of room up front, right? There's going to be a number of different coolers. In fact, there's probably going to be about 4. one for the radiator, which is actually a two-parter, 1 and 2. So it's actually a two-piece radiator that came with the S85, so I'm using that same radiator. There's one for the power steering. If I decide to go Hydraboost, that's what these lines here are for the power steering. Cooling. There's going to be an oil cooler as well. And that, I think, is it. I think there's only three coolers. Oh, and of course the air conditioning condenser will end up fitting in here as well, which I believe fits in front. I'm not sure. I think it fits in front. So yeah, I mean, I think I've talked enough about the engine bay. We have a lot of work to do in terms of organizing. I know that, right? Well, I'm going to try to break this down for you in terms of succinct videos that helps you understand what it takes to put this engine into this car and get everything to work. There'll be a number of videos that cover each subject individually. But for now, I just wanted to go through and talk about, my mode of thinking on how this engine is going to operate. And again, if you guys have any advice, I'd be more than happy to take it. This is going to be a really great project in 2020, and I really want to get it done in middle of the year, and that includes paint, wheels, tires, driving, all that stuff. I want this thing done. I want this done. It's been lingering long enough, so it's time. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all your comments, everything that you've provided, all of the views and the likes, telling your friends. Thank you. Consider subscribing if you really want to follow this build and see it go. This is you're still getting in as an early adopter onto this project, because in the middle of the year when I start really making some progress on this project will end up exploding. It's going to get a lot of visibility. So I really want you guys to be in on the ground floor. All right. Thanks a lot, guys, and keep in touch. Let me know what you want, let me know what you like or think, and I appreciate your comments. Thanks, guys. Later.